Okay, welcome everybody to episode 42 of Stuck in the Mail. We've got a very special one for you. It's The Flame, or as they were known before this, The Flames.
Love it. Hey, I thought your description on Instagram was so spot on. You said the flame, aka the Flames, if the Beach Boys were South African and the Beatles.
Yes, but it's almost more like if there were the South African Beatles and the Beach Boys were the producers. I don't know. There's a million things that can be said and will be said about this group. Uh, they exist on some kind of, for us in America, we're going to be, unfortunately, we have to take this from this standpoint in our universe. But I'm sure for people from South Africa, it's very different. But for us here, this is a band that sounds like, um, I'm just going to get on a whole nother narrative. I have a million of them here, but the Beach Boys put this band out. Carl Wilson produced this album. But if you know anything about the Beach Boys, Mike, what is it? What was it about Brian Wilson? What was it?
What do you mean?
What was his thing? What was the whole Rubber Soul, Pet Sounds, Sergeant Pepper's thing? What was it?
Oh, it was competition slash, it was the back and forth with the Beatles trying to outdo each other.
Correct. And what happened because of that?
Brian Wilson kind of got overwhelmed. He vanished from the public eye and couldn't take it anymore.
That is correct. And he stayed in his room, wouldn't record, wouldn't write, wouldn't make music, filled his room with sand, did all kinds of crazy, crazy things because Sergeant Pepper's, he couldn't beat Sergeant Pepper's. So, flash forward a few years, this band exists in South Africa. They're playing in London. Carl Wilson, who will soon be the head of the Beach Boys, comes across them and it comes across their playing. The Flame is made up of a front person, Blondie Chaplin, and three brothers who are Malay Muslim, the Fatars. Just like the Wilsons are three brothers. And he sees this band. This band is played for everyone in England, and everyone loves them. And he's like, let me produce your album, this album that we're reviewing today. But what I see when I think about that is not that. I see a person having to fill his brother's shoes. And I see a person who wants his brother to come back. And his brother is obsessed with the Beatles.
Yeah.
So when he sees this band, he goes, this is the answer. This is the answer.
I mean, by all accounts, the Beach Boys had kind of been a hot mess ever since Pet Sounds. And here's the thing about Pet Sounds, it's universally acclaimed today. I mean, universally. However, at the time, as I understand it, it was not successful in the United States. It was appreciated in the UK. But if you're Brian Wilson and you're trying to keep up with the Beatles and you're just, the rising tide of artistry in rock music. I mean, think about it. No rock and roll albums existed 10 years prior. And then all of a sudden it's this Rubber Soul, Revolver, Sergeant Pepper's, Pet Sounds, and then, Good Vibrations and like what he was trying to accomplish with the Smile album. But
Yeah.
it all kind of imploded and the Beach Boys were a mess. Like
Yes,
from
they were.
67 to 71, which is when I think, is that when he discovered the flame? From that whole period of time, those 4 or 5 years, they were fragmented. Like you said, Brian was MIA. um, Carl was essentially becoming the frontman of the group.
Very
And
much.
I think you're right. I think that when he heard this band, who, by the way, they sound like late period Beatles. Like if you like the White Album, if you like Let It Be, if you like Abbey Road, my goodness, if you like Abbey Road, you're going to love The Flame. And I think that Carl, who had been hearing all of these amazing albums by the Beatles after Pet Sounds,
Hmm.
he was thinking, oh my gosh, I've found it. I need
Yeah.
to tap into what these guys are doing and take our band in a more rock direction because
Yeah.
they weren't just surf music. They weren't just
Right.
California girls. They wanted to be so much more, and they had the talent to be so much more. But in the public consciousness, they were still doing surf and safari.
They the I don't want to go on a long tangent about the Beach Boys. You're absolutely right what you're saying, but the Beach Boys have this. I'm a music historian, and the Beach Boys have this strange effect where they pigeonholed themselves, but also they came out of an era of a different music. The music before 65 is different. The 45 era is different. The 50s era, even 60 to 65 is very different. And the Beach Boys came out of super success and affluence and what they were doing. And they actually almost bridged into modern music. And to some degree they did. But they, of course, struggled with that greatly because, and this is the weirdest thing, that shift is not so much a musical shift as it was a cultural shift in the world, especially here and reflected by music. And they were seen as very square, very square.
Right. Yeah, they couldn't shake that image because they had so successfully positioned themselves with the surfing craze. And in particular, Mike Love. I mean, that's a whole topic, Mike Love, but his genius was that I think he was always driving them to be more poppy, more accessible. I think he's probably the one who, more than anyone else, was like, guys, we've got to jump on this surf thing. We've got to be clean cut, all American kids. We got to like bridge what you're saying, the 45 era, squeaky clean, with, this new era of, and it just didn't mesh. Like it was like all of a sudden Brian was creating Pet Sounds, and I'm sure Mike was like, what is all this nonsense? We need to be making hits.
It's like everything on the radio was y'all alternative, and apparently dubstep came back, and every single artist made dubstep music. Like there's no doing it. But the Beach Boys actually did do it. And really, Pet Sounds is that bridge. And you're absolutely right to say, Pet Sounds is only something that's been worshipped for the past 20, 25, 30 years because you can just look at the cover, which is the typical 65 album cover. It's got all the songs on the cover. It's got the big name and a photo, and it's kind of goofy. But that's how albums started because they weren't considered a piece of art. They weren't considered a collected artist's vision. There's very different formats in music that can reflect very different reflections of what music is, and the Beach Boys, like when I think about them, the only other band they were vocal harmony, not truly doo-wop, but the only other band that comes anywhere close is Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons. Like
Right.
there's no other bands
Yeah.
that made it through that time portal.
They
You
just
know,
were a band in conflict. I mean, they had their internal demons. I mean, the three brothers, so different. I mean, you have Dennis, who was like going off the deep end in the early 70s. Like they're this collection. They became a music collective is kind of the sense I get, especially as the 60s wore on. And I think as they were turning the page to this new decade, Carl was like, this is the direction we need to go. He probably wasn't quite sure how to meld what he was hearing with the Flame, with what they were doing, but essentially that is what happened because two of the guys from the Flame literally joined the Beach Boys.
literally joined for 2 albums and a live album, as well as Blondie Chaplin is on Surf's Up. He plays bass on the fifth track, which is that really, really makes them super dated, like something student demonstration time, where
Yeah.
they're trying to be a little cool and they got all their preppy sweaters on, and you can see it in your mind.
It's definitely horrendous. That song is the worst.
That's
It's like,
that's the
I
that's
mean,
the Flames review like debut because Blondie plays bass on that, which is so odd.
yeah, essentially, and we'll get into Surf's Up, but the reason we wanted to talk about these albums together is that they're concurrent, basically. Like they were happening at the same time. I don't know totally the order of events, but somehow Carl Wilson saw the Flame in London,
Yep.
was like, these guys are it. And I can completely understand why he thought so.
Yeah.
Because again, when you listen to it, you're like, this is like the missing sequel of Abbey Road. I'm not even kidding. I
So
I actually think it's in some ways better than Abbey Road. That's Mike's hot take.
Yep, and it's only gonna get weirder for here, Mike. I hope you're really buckled in, man, because it is a weird alternative timeline bizarreness because I see things in what happened here that are pretty abstract. You have the fact that a band with three brothers, where one loves the Beatles, is, and won't play music. He's being a child. He's hiding in his room. No, I won't make music. I can't
You're
beat the
talking about
Beatles.
Brian.
Yeah, and then what happens? What happens in 1970?
Kent State,
Yes, very important, but more important for this narrative, there is no
Vietnam.
more Beatles. There is no more Beatles.
Oh, I gotcha.
The
Yep.
Beatles are no more. Of course, they dissolve in 74 legally, but 70, McCartney goes, I'm out of here, right? So what does Carl do? He's got an in. Let's put these guys out, you
I,
know?
I think you're completely right that
I'm
they
completely
were
right.
that Carl on his brother's behalf was trying to reach that next level of artistry, and things had just been a mess for a few albums for them, but you can tell, and that's why I find Surfs Up to be such a fascinating album, even though half of it is utter dung. uh, half
A
of
lot of
it
them are.
half of it is transcendently amazing. And
Mhm.
they're this band that was just caught in between, just trying. You're right. The Beatles broke up. I think you're right. Carl was like, this is it. This is where we're going.
Well, he essentially did get Brian back in and writing and stuff. So it did work. It's just this, whether we're weaving this narrative ourselves or this is the most logical pattern for something illogical, uh, either way is very fascinating because the Beatles do literally dissolve. This album comes out in 1970. It is, as you said, I think on every song just about I wrote Beatles. You can't get away from it.
Well,
Now,
and I will say too, it's an in joke too. I find that there are references that the band is making to the Beatles. In other words, this is on purpose. Like they are, it's an homage. It's a good natured, like the one that comes to mind for me is in that song, Don't Worry Bill, where you hear the riff of Dizzy Miss Lizzy.
Mama, won't you hold on? Mama, won't you hold on?
That cannot be a coincidence.
yep.
I love that moment because I'm like, where have I heard this before? Oh, right. It's 1964 or whatever Beatles. And I think that these guys were very inspired by the Beatles in the best way. And they were in a sense taking the baton, going with the style that the Beatles had ended up with right before they
Right.
ended things.
Moving on the Beatles, I mean, this is the kind of stuff that the music of today kind of feels like, because it feels like so much have been written. People work on an artist so heavily, it's almost like they're writing a lost volume themselves. And that's what this feels like here only 50 years ago. But the really interesting thing is, hey, who's to say that the Wilsons didn't write this album? I mean, seriously.
Yeah. A
The
little
actual Flames were an actual South African band with these four guys, three brothers and another guy, right? But guess what? Their first album, exactly what you would expect. All rock and roll standards. And then for years in South Africa, and there's a lot of interesting politics with South Africa, but for years, their hits were also covers, but they were the soul band.
Yep.
So they only did soul. Like every album was Impressions and stuff was their biggest hit, For Your Precious Love. So they were a rock cover band, like most bands start out, and they were kind of like the Beatles, right? The Beatles in Germany, they're doing all rock songs, everyone in that era. And then they're doing soul songs. And then all of a sudden, they make an album with the Beach Boys, and it's all original material that sounds like the Beatles, right?
Yeah.
But they've never written their own songs.
So do you think that maybe Carl saw them in London playing covers and he was like, this is the perfect way for me to test this new material?
Yeah, and Brian secretly had all the songs written because I don't know. There's so many avenues.
It's
That's why I said
probably it's probably not the most what's
a
the word?
sound idea.
I think that it's a little far-fetched, but I hear what you're saying
It's very far-fetched, but you can see where it could be possible.
because that clearly was what was driving the Beach Boys. It was their desire to basically answer Sergeant Pepper still.
If the Flame did not have any other albums, right? and this was put out, and the only thing on Brother Record, and these other musicians never did anything else. Of course, they've all done tons of stuff. Ricky's been with Bonnie Raitt for 35 years as their drummer. The weirdest thing, and I should really have mentioned this sooner, but it's so weird it gets full loop weird. Steve Fattar, or maybe it was Ricky. Yeah, Ricky Fattar is in the Ruddles with Eric Idle, which is a full-blown Beatles spoof, right? And so that says it right there. It's
Yeah.
like laughing at the cover up. It's like, oh yeah, we were a Beatles spoof. So, we might blow up the internet on this one.
Yeah, I think we just did. I think that you've uncovered the secret album that was never known and has been hidden in plain sight.
There is no answers, and if you try to search for answers on the internet, you won't get any.
Well, and here's what I will say.
Oh,
As someone who has been
sparks.
trying to listen to this album, at first I was listening to the vinyl rip on YouTube, which is a way, but then I found out it is on Spotify, but not in the way that you would expect. It's called Psychedelic Essentials,
Yeah.
and it has a different track order. So I prefer the track order that's on the LP. But if you're listening to this and you're like, I have to hear this band for myself, first of all, yes, you do. And second of all, that's how you can do it. Either go to YouTube, we'll probably put a link in the comments so you can. It is quite an experience. I mean, Casey, I just have to say, this is your third like hidden masterpiece that you have uncovered. First, it was Prismatic. Then it was the Hot Dogs, which is right behind me
Oh, yeah.
over here.
Mhm.
And now you've done it again for the third time. It's cosmic, man. Somehow you found the flames, and it's really, really, really quite amazing.
It's what I do, Mike. It's what I do. This is part of the record digging hobby. Everyone I know who's a real head, you may have various reasons to do it, but what I'm looking for is that record that I can't find. I can't find in reality. I have to dig for it. I don't know why it doesn't exist in reality. And that's what I mean. There are these things. I was calling them like multiverse nostalgia because it's like you already know it and you love it and you're like, but it's not actually part of your reality. It's another dimension. So with this, I mean, it is connected by the ties, but the music itself, it just seems like a band that should have been a huge hit. Now, I don't want to go into that narrative too much, but I have actually a lot of negative narratives, not about the band, but about the Beach Boys.
Well, before we get into that, do you want to give a shout out to your friend who
I
introduced you to
do.
this?
I do. June, you're the best, man. The best digger I know, and the only one that's above me. He's the one that introduced me to Flower Traveling Band. He's a Japanese fellow here in town, and he knows, I got a larger breadth of span of music, and I know some deep cuts. But man, some of this stuff, he's like an expert on the quote unquote private press. Now, this is not private press, and he told me he had two copies of this, and that one had been filed under T for and would I like a copy with the poster? And I said, yes, yes, please. Not really knowing how great it was. It's kind of listed as a psychedelic classic. I don't really feel or hear that as much as some other true psych,
Yeah.
but it has that Beatles psychedelic element to it 100%, 100,000%. And I think it's right now, I mean, Ukiah's on Fire. It's the album I'm grabbing.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that important to me. And the more we get into it and the more we talk about it, and I have countless discussions with my wife about it, like it just means so much. Like I do hope this is our bridge into something because people on the internet aren't really talking about the flame.
Well, can I offer some more
Yeah, please.
evidence for your claim that maybe this was a shadow album by Carl and Brian? So, did you come across the fact that this is the first ever rock album apparently that was recorded in quadraphonic sound?
Yeah. And that hits on one of my interesting narratives.
Well, because in think about this.
Yeah.
If you were Carl Wilson or Brian or whatever, and you were like, I need to take music to the next level,
Yeah.
that was it. In the early 70s, that's what people thought was about to happen. You'd gone from mono to stereo, and all of a sudden, you were going to have four channels, and you can hear it in the music. You can hear it on certain songs that there's a guitar that's like a little muted, and you're like, I bet that was the third channel, or I bet that was supposed to be the fourth channel, right?
I think we need to listen to that track 10, Another Day Like Heaven, right now, don't you think? And if you're wondering if that is some kind of like Beastie Boys, that's right, Beastie Boys, not Beach Boys. It does appear at the end in all that quadraphonic sound, which I'm not hearing quadraphonically, but it sounds like they're saying, listen all y'all, which really sounds like the Beastie Boys. So there you go. Maybe the Beastie Boys were hip.
Well, and just to kind of another nod here to quadraphonic. So Quadrophenia, of course, by The Who, one of my favorite albums that may make an appearance on this pod if I ever want to subject Casey to its length. This was happening in the early 70s. This was a real thing. And apparently, The Flame were the first ones to try it. Now, that makes no sense. Why would four guys from Eastern South Africa who are not already established suddenly decide? Why would they be the ones to say, we're going to be the ones to do it?
Sadly, I'm deeper in this story than you, and I'm going to give you my hot take. I think some of it is pretty negative.
Okay.
I don't want it to be, but when you discover things, you think, okay, what is going on here? And then, my brain operates in many different regions, so hopefully it's just my brain. But what I got out of that was that somehow, so Brother Records had just started, right? And this was their only other release. I can't help but think when I look at this record and I look at the bottom, so Surf Up, distributed by Reprise, right? A major, right? This label, I'm sorry, this album was put out, and I'm a 45 guy, so I know it was put out by Starday King. Now, both of those labels are great, but they had merged and they went bankrupt in 1970. So it's almost like I don't know what kind of money went into the making of this, or I don't have any knowledge of how many were pressed, but I wish I did. But the thing is, they failed on distribution. They sold it to a company that did not distribute it, that went bankrupt, and I would argue they knew was going bankrupt. I think they were trying to take a loss on the books because nothing is shadier than the music industry.
So tell me why they would do that.
I mean, there's a lot. One of the things is then it'd be like, then they could get Ricky and Blondie in the band. I don't know. That doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
If we're following the narrative of this is going to bring Brian back and this is the new Beatles, maybe it was too good and they couldn't face it. They're like, no, we put this out, and then we're going to be a record label, and it's not going to be about us anymore. Egos, I guess. But what happened is what I said. Ricky Fattar and Blondie Chaplin, the singer, primarily the singer, joined the Beach Boys for 2 albums. And ironically, the first album of those 2 is called not the Beach Boys. It's called Carl, as in Carl Wilson, and the Passions. So they just renamed the Flames the Passions. And then the next one is Holland.
Yes, Holland, which of course has Sail on Sailor, which is sung by Blondie Chaplin.
Yes, correct. And a great song, even though Brian thinks it's Bantha Poodoo.
Well, I mean, he wasn't involved, so of course he feels that way.
No, he was involved. He has songwriting credit. He has music writing credits,
Okay.
not lyrics.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Well, do you want to talk about the songs on this album, or do you have more to say on your conspiracy theory here?
you're gonna lead this part, and I have notes. A lot of the notes, I don't know the specific Beatles songs, but
Well,
let's just say they're numerous.
I just have to say, like, I think one of the things that's so satisfying about it, because it took me again 4 or 5 times to really start to like grab onto the songs, especially because I didn't know what the songs were called because I'm listening to a YouTube link, and I'm not. But anyway, I love how the songs build and add new sections. That whole "Listen All Y'all" part on the Heaven song, that comes in at like minute 6 or something. Like, I love how inventive they are, and these songs go somewhere. They don't just like verse, chorus, and then blah. Like, it's really sophisticated rock music. And I one of my favorite moments, which I love to play right now, is on the first song, "See the Light."
Mhm.
Is halfway through they play this killer riff, and then the hi hat. There's this breakdown between the riff and the hi hat, and my goodness, I forget who the drummer is. Is that Ricky?
That's
Um,
Ricky.
he is going nuts on that hi hat like his life depends on it. So here it is.
See the light, see the light. The light of my life, she gets brighter. The light of my life.
And I would just like to give another shout out here, just in general, to Ricky Fatar, because I don't know if it's the quadraphonic sound, I don't know what it is, but these drums just jump, right?
Yeah.
He's playing these triplet fills. I think my favorite song on the record is probably where he shines the most, and that is the song "Hey Lord."
So don't take me for a fool. When I'm yeah. Lover, you're free to
That one is a killer rock song. Like, this is, if you were Carl Wilson, I like, in my mind, I imagine them in this club,
Mhm.
and I imagine Carl in the back, just like the thoughts are like swirling. He's like, what if I know, and I can just picture him listening to this song, in particular, this jam at the ending, which we're going to listen to here. Imagine being Carl Wilson, being in a club, hearing this and saying, I need to work with these guys.
Yeah, and the beginning of this sounds modern. It was actually my wife that said, "Wow, this sounds like Nirvana." The beginning of "Hey Lord" sounds like Nirvana, and I was like, "What?"
It kind of does. You're right. She's right.
It's like what in the 22 years, which doesn't seem like a long amount of time, but whenever you look back, the difference in years seems like more. But it's like it's unbelievable. Let me do one. Let me do my fave since it's the next track, track four, which is the slow, soft, gentle, ballady love song, "Lady." Let's
Lady.
hear that right now.
I'll see my little lady tonight, 'cause she makes me very happy. I'll see my little lady tonight, 'cause she makes me very happy.
This is they got all of the band, all of the brothers, the Fatars, Steve, Ricky, and Brother, that's his nickname. And then, of course, Blondie, the lead singer, they all sing. Like, that's one of the things, like the Beach Boys. They're an element, they're from that era, the pre-65 era. And the harmony on this one is great.
It is. I love this one.
Beautiful song. And it makes me so happy.
If
Makes me feel happy in my life.
Yeah, it's right. That's right. It's a song about looking around and being thankful for the good things in your and for this relationship. I mean, it's beautiful.
Exactly.
And I'm like, where did this come from?
It came from outer space.
So I got to do another. Here's another kind of cool, I think, in joke, not in joke, but another tribute to the Beatles. The song "Make It Easy." So
Oh,
listen to this part. Just listen to this.
Help me, I'm feeling down. Tell me we'll be around.
Okay. So in case you didn't hear those lyrics, it's help me, I'm feeling down. Tell me, tell me you will be around. Which makes me think of a Beatles song called Help.
yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Pretty interesting.
They flipped them enough. Like it makes you wonder. It makes the Wilson brothers writing the Fatar songs is a silly thing. They were an established great band, but Like you'd think that they're so good they could take Beatles songs and kind of flip them around, like through
Mhm.
covering them. Like, I feel like that's something. And also in South Africa, I mean, that's a different, absolute different world. Like,
Exactly.
so different and so alien to say, like the US. The only thing that I could liken that to would be, say, like Russia. It is a really, it's one of those things where it seems familiar, and that's what makes it weirder, is because it has familiarity, you know?
I know it's the fact that these guys who, Eastern South Africa kind of has it's its own thing. Like it's not like I think they're from Durban, right?
Yeah, they're from
So
Durban. Yeah.
yeah, and I'm like, why would the next Beatles be in Durban?
Well, I mean, there's just microclimates of, obvious FM dial coming in, and it changing. And there are some African music scenes I know of, and they do have more African feel. Now, Zamrock and Zambia had a lot of, it took a lot from England because it was a colony, but with South Africa, there's so many things going on, and it's kind of so messy too. Like, I don't even want to quite dip my feet into it because it is like really convoluted and tough.
Yeah,
And this is about the music, but I don't really know the real true history. I know that they're Malay Muslim, and it has something to do with them. It's not their home country. They were like somehow put there. And I don't really know Blondie Chaplin's story at all, but he's definitely the one that went on to become, I guess, the most known. Like, I have his solo album somewhere, and unfortunately I've misplaced it. But these guys, they're real musicians. There's no doubt about that.
for
What
sure.
happened? What happened with them and the Beach Boys, and whether or not the Beach Boys promoted them correctly or underhandedly tried to rip them off to get them be in their band, or who knows. Something was going on. The music business is rough and was really rough then. If the kids think Spotify is bad, um, I mean, it's a rough thing.
Well, you know what I would love? An interview with Blondie Chaplin. Let's make
Yeah.
it happen. Let's see, Mr. Chaplin, if you're watching this, uh, give us a call. Let us know because we love your music. Uh, this is a really interesting, amazing album to uncover. Is there anything else, Casey, that you would like to cover about this before we flip the side and talk about the Beach Boys?
I'm gonna have a hard time talking about the Beach Boys, but bear with us and let's do this. Surf's up.
All right, great.